Welcome back everybody to a fresh episode of Ask the Skinny Guy Savior. I'm Vince Del Monte and I'm taking your questions right off my Facebook fan page. This is going to be one of the last batches of questions we do before you see equipment installed down here. So the guys haven't arrived yet. Pretty soon they're going to be bringing all the equipment through the back door. This gym will be getting set up as I take your questions. As you can see, we got the Watson dumbbells back here. If you missed the last episode, watch that. I tell you a bit about the cool features of the fat bar handles that spin and the increments they go up in, and we'll dive right into your questions today. I only took one question last time. We're gonna do 5 right now on the theme of cutting, how to minimize muscle loss while doing a cut. Different cardio diet strategies, weight training strategies, things you want to be aware of if you're transitioning from a bulk to a cut. And these are obviously appropriate for most people probably watching this in North America who are moving into the winter months right now. So before we go into the specifics, let's take this first question from Simon Israel. He says, how do you stay motivated and keep on cutting through the winter when everyone else is bulking? Thanks, Vince. Been watching your videos for a few years now. Always great advice. So this is really just a mindset thing, Israel. Simon, sorry. For example, I'm not bulking through the winter. The goal is to find guys that aren't bulking. You said everyone. Not everyone is bulking through the winter. So the first thing you need to do is not worry about what anyone else is doing except what you're doing. So, the onus comes back on you, on your goals. What are you going to do about them? Are you going to take responsibility for your goals? Or are you going to find excuses because everyone else is bulking and going out, it's going to be harder for me? Well, look at this as a positive, not as a negative. Look at this as an opportunity for you to make gain, to get ahead of your friends. Look at this as an opportunity to be lean so that when the summer months come around, you don't have to cut leading into the summer. You're already cut when that early spring weather comes. So this is really just a shift in perspective, a shift of taking something that may be perceived as a negative and viewing it as a positive. Okay, next question goes to Pedro Soares. He says, what kind of cardio exercises do you think are most effective pre-workout when you're trying to cut fat and bulk at the same time? So I'm not a huge pre-workout cardio guy. I believe that if your goal is to maximize musculature, you want to save your energy for the weight training, and you want to let the diet do the caloric deficit part that results in fat loss. So I wouldn't do cardio before you do your weights. I would save that for after the weights. And if you're trying to bulk at the same time, I would keep your cardio sessions to 3 times a week, no more than 20 minutes. Do interval style cardio. You're a young guy, so you can get your heart rate up, you can push yourself, and that's gonna help partition your calories to your muscles. It's going to help keep your insulin sensitivity higher. Basically, it's going to help you maximize the muscle to fat ratio in plain English. So that's what I'd recommend doing. Cardio post-workout 3 times a week for 20 minutes. Next question goes to Joshua. Joshua says, Joshua Kalmick. He says, hey Vince, love all the guidance. I'm currently bulking and making consistent gains. Coming into this next year, I need to begin a cutting routine, minimizing muscle loss. What should my weight and cardio routine look like for efficient fat loss while maintaining my gains? Okay, Joshua, first things first, you really, and I say this in the most sincere way possible, but you really have no business thinking about what you need to do with your cutting routine until it comes time to cut. Right now, you're bulking. And if you start thinking, why do you need to think about cutting? It's like thinking about what courses you need to take in 4th year when you're in 1st year. Let's focus on getting A+ in 1st year, and then we can decide what kind of courses we need to take when we get closer. So I love your eagerness. I like that you're thinking forward, but it's not necessary. Let's stay focused on bulking right now. When it comes time to cut, the main things are to maintain the same weight training routine. Keep the same protocols. So I've spoken about this before. If you use hypertrophy-based protocols to build the muscle, keep hypertrophy-based protocols to keep the muscle. Okay, we don't go from one end of the spectrum to the other. And when it comes time to cut the fat, come down slowly. Avoid extremes. All right, next question goes to James Calder. I think James has submitted a question here before, so thanks for continuing to watch, James. I don't mind taking questions from the same people multiple times, by the way. Hey Vince, huge fan, just recently finished cutting as I ended up putting on an uncomfortable amount of body fat during my previous bulk. Going into this next bulk now, is there any tips you can give on limiting body fat gains as much as possible while still gaining a stable amount of muscle per month? This is definitely something I've wondered for a long time, man. Long time now, thanks man. So James, here's the problem. You're not tracking your progress. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but if you really want to see results, you've got to measure your progress. You've all heard me say this before. What gets measured gets managed. So the reason I'm a big believer in this is because if you're tracking your calories, your macros, if you're tracking your training volume, how much cardio you're doing, essentially what you're doing is you're creating a map. So if you end up somewhere where you don't like, in your case, you've gained too much fat, you can look back and see where you've come from, and you can say, where did I make a wrong turn? And you can look back in your training journal and say, oh, for 4 weeks I didn't do any cardio. Okay, I gotta obviously change that. Or you can look back in your training journal and you can say, holy, I've been eating 700 grams of carbs a day, maybe I should back it off to 500. But if you don't have those details, then you can't, if you're not measuring anything, you can't manage anything. So that's your lesson. Next bulk, start measuring all your different variables. Last question for today goes to Al-Sadar Marshall. He says, what do you think about changing up your training every week to gain muscle size? Different sets, reps, exercises, rest periods. So I'm a huge believer in manipulating all these variables, but every week is too frequent. Even the most highly skilled athlete, the most experienced athletes, bodybuilders, don't need to change the variables from a workout to workout basis. Maybe less than 0.01% of the population are even in that category. Most elite bodybuilders would benefit from changing their variables every 2 to 3 weeks. And the reason for that is because you make gains based on progression, getting better at what you're doing, adapting to it, overreaching, adapting, and that's the process. So if there's too much variety will backfire on you and your body won't adapt to anything. All right, because your body doesn't know, there's too much stimulus for your body to adapt to anything. It doesn't know what am I supposed to do now? So, oh, I see the trucks coming in, holy cow. I guarantee you that truck that just passed by is coming to our house. It's a big truck. Which is appropriate as this being the last question. So I hope I answered your question there, by the way, Marshall. By the way, if you guys have further questions on training, program design, it's one of the biggest topics you need to really become well versed on if you want to do well in the gym and see your body grow. I recommend you take my training quiz over at my website, vincedelmontefitness.com. It's a great 15-question quiz, and you'll be able to test your knowledge and see where you're at, see how you score. There's also a nutrition quiz there, and there's also a supplement quiz there. So if you haven't taken the other two, but you've taken the training one, try those ones out and see how smart you think you really are and see how you do. So that's your next step. Go take that quiz, and I'll be in touch with you soon. We'll see you guys next time.